Now, to further explore this issue on Human Rights Day here in South Africa, we're joined by Justice Albie Sachs, a retired judge of the Constitutional Court, as well as a human rights activist. Justice Sachs, thank you very much for your time this evening. Look, 25 years into our democracy, where would we say South Africa is faring in terms of human rights for all in this country?
Can I take you back? I was around at the time of Sharpeville, not in Sharpeville, in Cape Town, where 6 people were shot dead in Langa, and just recreate something of the impact it had on our society then, and compare how different things are in the country today. It was like there were 2 shocks. The first shock was when the news came through. It was reported by the government as a riot. Natives shot dead in a riot. But there happened to be a BBC cameraman there. We didn't have TV in South Africa. And the film went round the world, and there was a huge reaction internationally. This was apartheid at work. And so the second shock came when the international opinions were broadcast or were communicated to South Africa. It really shook up the government. And then we had that huge march from Langa and Yanga in Cape Town, 10, 15, 20, 25,000 people coming into the center of town, great excitement, and would this be the beginnings of change? And the leaders were told, go back to the locations, we'll speak to you tomorrow. Total betrayal. The next morning they woke up, the army was surrounding the locations, there was a state of emergency. ANC was banned, PAC was banned, leaders were thrown into jail, detention without trial, newspapers closed down. Now that was what life was like under apartheid. And today, at the very least, we have our freedom. Freedom in our lifetime, that used to be our slogan. And you can't just chuck people into jail simply because somebody in office doesn't like what's happening. You can't shoot 69 people in the backs running away like that. If you do happen, we've had terrible tragedies even in these 25 years. There's some accounting, there's some responsibility, there's shock throughout the country. These things are just intolerable. And we've got our freedom. We have our elections, free and fair elections. We have a strong judiciary, we have a lively press, we have strong civil society. So at that level of political change, we are in another country completely to what we were under apartheid. Where we aren't nearly as far advanced as we should be is in relation to the real life opportunities of our people, and still overwhelmingly whites are much better off than black people. There's still racism, there's massive unemployment, there are all sorts of problems, and corruption.
We'll talk
For
about
me,
that,
what is
Justice
so heartening today is that we are exposing the corruption ourselves. Our institutions are working. We've got strong prosecuting authorities in place now, and the truth is coming out. We South Africans are strong enough to maintain the truth, to hold the truth, and to have people answerable and accountable to the truth. To me, these are the huge gains in the 25 years. They don't take away the inequalities, but they give us the mechanisms, the weapons to deal with the things that are rotten and bad and unfair and unjust in our society.
Justice Sachs, I want us to just take a listen to what President Cyril Ramaphosa said while he was in Sharpeville today regarding human rights. Let's take a listen to this, and then we'll explore some of those issues that you've mentioned much more.
The road we have traveled has been a long one. The achievement of a society that respects fundamental human rights was won after a hard struggle. We fought, we resisted, and ultimately we prevailed. We walk in the footsteps of Nelson Mandela, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, Steve Biko, Mama Albertina Sisulu, Joe Slovo, Helen Joseph, Winnie Madikizela Mandela, and many other luminaries of our struggle. We draw strength and courage from them as we confront the challenges of the here and now. Together, let us deepen the culture of human rights and become true human rights activists. But this human rights that we're seeking to advance to deepen, and to protect must be the type of human rights culture that touches all aspects of the lives of our people. It must not just be limited to one area. It must both be economic, it must be social, it must also touch on our religious beliefs, on our rights to our languages. It must also touch on the workplace. And we are pleased that we have a constitution that is broad in terms of its reach, in terms of promoting the culture for respect, protection, and advancement of human rights that we have espoused.
Well, Justice Sachs, just listening to President Cyril Ramaphosa in Sharpeville, indeed, I don't think there's an argument that a lot has been done in South Africa, but we're in a total different phase right now. You did allude to some of the issues. There are still basic services that many South Africans still have not access to. On the issue of corruption, where literally the poor are being stolen from. And 25 years into democracy, while there is much to celebrate, there's still a large number of people in this country living below the poverty line and are struggling to access just basic services that would give them dignity.
That's absolutely right. And I can add more. There's degrees of violence, there's crime, there's racism in our society, totally unacceptable. But the huge difference is before the whole constitution was geared, the law was geared, the instruments of state, everything were geared against change, against the people. The great majority of our people were treated as subhuman in those days. Now we're free to speak out and to demand change, to expose the corruption, and to deal with leadership. I mean, there are huge political battles going on inside the country. It's no secret. There's the battle between the parties through the electoral system. There's the battle inside the different parties, maybe as important for the future of this country as the battles between the parties. But we are free. We speak our minds. The SABC, you can ask me these questions. Before it was a totally stooge organization issuing government propaganda about natives rioting and agitators stirring them up. So in that sense, we must hold on to the gains in order to deal with the deficits. And of course there's an expanding horizon of demands of people. It's not enough that we can just vote. We want to live decently. It's not enough just that we live decently. We want to have good health. We want to have education. We want to explore. We want to be scientists. We want to go to the moon. This is not possible for the great majority of our people still today, but we are free, and our freedom was hard won. And we always included in the freedom. The issue of land was there with us in the struggle days. The issue of health was very strongly with us in the struggle days. The issue of education was there with us all the time. But we had to break the system of apartheid. We had to get a new constitution. We had to have people feeling, I have rights. I'm a human being, I have rights. I might be poor, I might be hungry, but I have rights. And that's the beginning of change. And I think we've been very successful in that respect. Our people take our institutions seriously. They must use the rights that were so hard won, that so many people died for. Use the rights not simply because people died for them, but because it makes you a stronger, better, more confident human being with greater esteem and greater sense of, I can do something with my life. I'm just not being buffeted around. I can link up with others. We can bring about changes. We matter, we count.
Justice, for a democracy that was so hard fought for, obviously one needs to guard against the erosion of the gains that were attained through blood, sweat and tears, if I may. But I have to say, when you look at issues such as corruption, wild-scale corruption in this country, you look at the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, that gives us a glimpse into the looting that has taken place, which basically, if I can, spits on all of the efforts that were made by individuals who, including those in Sharpeville, in Langa, and in other areas, fought for. Now, how do we as a country But before we do that, Justice Sachs, before we go to that, let's take a look at Eskom, for example. I'm sure where you are sitting in Cape Town, you are also affected by wide-scale power cuts, right? All because some could definitely argue the wide-scale looting at state-owned enterprises. Let's take a listen to this clip by Cyril Ramaphosa on the issues of load shedding, and we'll talk about wide-scale corruption after that. Let's take a listen.
1994, only 36% of the population in our country had access to electricity. Today, 8 out of 10 South Africans have electricity in their homes. Yet, we are currently facing a severe energy crisis that is having a profound impact on the lives of our people and also on our economy. The impact on the economy is quite huge, but so is the impact on the lives of ordinary South Africans. Restoring a reliable supply of energy and ensuring that we have a sustainable model for affordable energy into the future is now one of our most urgent priorities. We have confronted difficulties before and in the past. Challenges that have seemed insurmountable were also confronted. And we've also confronted what many people thought were the most intractable challenges and problems. But we have always prevailed. We have always prevailed, and this we have done when we have been able to work together and never giving up. We will overcome this electricity crisis that is engulfing our country at this moment. We will overcome it just as we overcame the apartheid challenge, just as we will overcome unemployment, just as we will overcome poverty, crime, and corruption. We will overcome because we are South Africans.
Now, Justice Sachs, listening to the president there, he speaks, he mentioned the word overcome several times. Now, I do understand during the apartheid era, what you needed to overcome then was obviously an oppressive government, which basically marginalized black people. But today, you're talking about institutions that are no longer operating because of greed, because of absolute looting, and which flies in the face of everything that was fought for. I mean, what would you have to say about, the overcoming that the president speaks of now? Because clearly, what we're seeing now is because of individuals who have their own selfish interests at heart, and you're looking at issues pertaining to the inquiry into state capture and institutions such as Eskom, which have basically totally broken down.
Number one, first thing, the truth has got to come out. Number two, the villainy has to be exposed very, very carefully. Number three, the people responsible have to be prosecuted, go to jail. Number four, it's not enough just to punish. We've got to prevent these things from happening again in future. We've got to ensure that capable people are appointed to positions, that people don't get jobs simply because they can help themselves. We're going through a cathartic moment in South Africa now. It's painful, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. It hurts those of us who are in the struggle, I think, more than anybody else. This is not what we were fighting for. This is not what people went to jail for, were blown up, were tortured, survived, so that just a few individuals could help themselves. But we got through that. We got through that phase. We've got to, what I think Cyril Ramaphosa went on to say afterwards, it's working together. All South Africans must come together. In a curious way, this corruption is producing a unity of anger and opposition and a determination to get through. We don't want a dirty country. We don't want people in office who are there simply to help themselves. We want integrity, we want honesty, we want people working together. And I think my hope is that good will come out of bad now. that we're going to revitalize, as we've already revitalized Parliament, we've revitalized many instruments of state, of public life in many different ways. We're going to revitalize our politics and get hopefully more people working together. The blackouts affect us all more or less equally. Maybe the poor need electricity even more than the wealthy. So we've got to find ways of handling these things. But for me, it's the truth that will set us free. It's our institutions working properly under the Constitution that set us free. It's not just locking up people, throwing them into jail. It's following due processes of law. It's having lively press. It's having an SABC that's doing work, as far as I can see, marvelously today, dealing with the hard issues, dealing with painful questions. That's the only way we can get through this.
Thanks for that, Justice Sachs. But, you know, what then needs to happen? We're all in agreement, yes, that a lot has been done. But, I mean, we head to another crucial time, to an election in South Africa, where I guess many of the challenges that the country still faces, would be top of the minds of South Africans. Those perhaps who also speak about, some of their human rights that are still being trampled on at this stage. What do you think South Africa needs to do now to ensure that where we are, we're able to move from the point where we are, where perhaps some would even think there's simply no way forward?
Well, we have to be very sober on the one hand, bear the pain, but we also have to be optimistic and move forward in the way that we've done in the past. We're not unique. When I think of my friends in England, they're all in chaos because of Brexit. I think of my friends in the United States. It's chaos there because of their president. I think of Zimbabwe, that's been trying and struggling and so on. It's no consolation to us that we're sharing pain with other countries. But I often say we're wonderful in South Africa performing miracles. What we've got to learn to do is the normal. And really we're learning these hard lessons in that sense of normalizing our society, doing well, drawing on our strengths. The strengths are our people, the vitality of our people, the resilience of our people, the cultural interactions and diversity which was used as a club to keep us apart in the past is a source of great electricity, movement, vibrancy today. One of the things that amuses me so much is our biggest growth industry is stand-up comedians from all different sectors of our communities, speaking all the different languages. Why? Because South Africans can laugh at ourselves, we can think about what's going on, we can critique, we feel free inside our souls. And we've got to get that energy together. Whatever happens, we mustn't become cynical, we mustn't become defeatist, because we've got through so much more that's so much harder than this. This requires now putting our heads together, good engineers, good appointments, doing everything in a proper, normal, decent way, getting rid of the muck and re-establishing normal, decent way. I say re-establishing, we never had it. We had it to some extent for the whites. We've never had it for the whole population in South Africa. And I've found amongst young people, I found amongst yourselves there, 2 young women, SABC, asking bright questions, poised, intelligent, sharp. You don't mind a little bit of flattery, but you're typical of a whole generation. And I have confidence in that generation, provided our top leadership is good. And that's a question that people are asking, and that's a question we decide at the elections. Many people are very, very comfortable with the top leadership now, because it's facing up to the realities. Other people are saying we need change, more radicalization or less radicalization. That's the people's choice. But I come back to the importance of our democracy, the importance of our courts, the importance of our press, the importance of our media, the importance of our artists, the importance of being a live, vital South African people, looking for solutions, coming together, working together, enjoying the challenge, if you like, the challenge of overcoming these obstacles and feeling so much stronger at the end of it. Yes, we've got over this electricity thing. We've got over it. We will get over it. I'm confident. I'm Albie Sachs. I've been confident in very difficult times in my life. Even after I was blown up by a bomb, I was confident we would make it. And I have that same confidence today, that we have the energies in South Africa, the intelligence, and the great demand from our people to have a clean society and a decent and a fair society. This will get us through, working together, get us through the difficulties we're experiencing at the moment.
Yeah. Justice Sachs, just before we wrap up, how does it then we find as South Africans that, we still live in one of the most unequal societies in the world, it is said? Is there enough political will to address some of those challenges, issues of unemployment, issues of, many other challenges that we're facing in the country? Perhaps then, one could argue that the gains or the fight back then was just.
I think we've got to recognize that serious attempts are made to at least cushion the impact of the inequality. We have something like a third of our population getting welfare grants. They shouldn't be on welfare, they should be working, that'd be much better, but at least it converts starvation into hunger. We shouldn't have hunger. It's the biggest section in welfare provisions in Africa by far, and exceeding many other very wealthy parts of the world. Yeah. We've had something like millions of homes have been given free to poor people to move from shacks. Water, electricity, sewage, they're not great homes, but they vastly improved. We have water reaching 90%, electricity when it's on reaching 80% of the people. It's not as though there've been no changes, and these are changes that affect the poor the most and affect women the most, who don't have to carry water on their heads anymore, who don't have to look after children who've been burnt because they're living in shacks and there's fire in the place. So there have been real changes, and it's noticeable that the poor, by and large, who benefited the least from the changes in our country, somehow seem to be the most connected with government, even though they've got the least. And it's the better off people who want more, demand more, and quite correctly so. Everybody's entitled to make demands for more. But for me, what is strong is the spirit, it's called Ubuntu, of human solidarity, of respect. It runs through the faith communities, it runs through the arts communities, it runs through the political parties. I think these aspects of our fabric are still strong, they're still intense, they're still meaningful, and that's how we bring about the changes that are needed. In terms of the overall mindset, I've been on the socialist side my whole life. I would like to see a change in the system that puts more emphasis on creating economic mechanisms that focus very directly on the rights of the poor, not simply to get handouts, but to get employment and so on. But these things are not easily achieved. They can't be achieved just through slogans. And even the choices that we make, we've got to do them collectively as a South African society. We're grappling with the issue of land right now, but that's one of those issues that in the end, if we handle it well, can bring us together more strongly, provide more employment, provide more food for more people, and more sense of dignity that I own some piece of property that's mine, that I work, I put my energy and sweat into it, and I'm getting certain benefits from it. So there are all sorts of ways of dealing with the issue of poverty, not simply through handouts, important though the Social Security network is, and not simply through education, fundamental though better education is. This is going to require a collective effort. And let me say, I love this intergenerational impact. I love it when an old guy like me has a faith and an energy and a vitality and enthusiasm based on life experience, which I can communicate to young, very wise people, wise and cynical, and let them know. We South Africans have been through so much over the decades. We've surmounted so much. It's not just slogans. And we've gained our dignity.
Okay, Justice Sachs.
We've gained our dignity, and I find young people love to hear those stories. Not just the phrases of the past, our glorious liberation army and so on, but to hear life stories of people who've been through a lot, survived a lot. I was blown up by a bomb, I was thrown into solitary confinement, I was exiled, I was banned from moving around. I had all these different things, but we snapped free of it. We were like Houdinis in South Africa.
Justice Sachs,
we broke out of our oppression, and we can break out of the difficulties, many of which we inherited, some of which we've made for ourselves.
Speaking of that togetherness, Justice Sachs, part of this year's Human Rights Day was dedicated, to the promotion of indigenous languages in our country. The president basically told the crowd that language was used as a weapon of oppression against the majority of South Africans. Let's take a listen to this before we engage further.
When the colonialists came to our country and as the apartheid rulers also extended their own rule over our country and our people, they made language an instrument that they could subjugate our people with. They chose language and saw it as this instrument and sought in the process to deliberately suppress and to destroy our languages, and in a number of cases even sought to obliterate them. With our freedom in 1994, we got an opportunity to restore the standing of our various languages. In our past, yes, language was used as a symbol of oppression. Today, we are here to affirm that language can be used as a source of empowerment and pride. In according all our languages the respect that they are due, we are affirming the dignity, the worth, and the humanity of every South African. It is said that when a language dies, a way of life and a way of understanding the world dies with it. So the aim of this year's celebration, therefore, is to highlight the efforts as well as the importance that we attach to conserving languages that are in danger of being extinct.
Justice Sachs, before we wrap up, on the issue of language, I would tend to agree with the President on that and how language was used, to oppress black people. One could perhaps argue that struggle still continues in modern day South Africa. If you look at, for example, the battles that have been held at universities on the issue of Afrikaans and the use of Afrikaans as a medium or language of choice within these institutions.
Yes, I was so thrilled that he gave a lot of attention to language. I remember when we were negotiating, we were very insistent. We didn't want to downgrade English and Afrikaans, but we wanted the African languages to have full equality of esteem. And then we came up with 11 languages. We were going to put them in alphabetical order. Guess which came first? Afrikaans, English. So we decided that would be a bad way to start, putting them at the top.
Yes.
And so we started, I think, with Sesotho. And then we included as well the importance of other languages, sign language, religious languages. And I was particularly pleased to see a special acknowledgement of sign language, maybe because losing my arm in the bomb blast, I became very connected with the disability movement. Going to a meeting of deaf people using sign language, I wondered, asked them afterwards, how do you clap if you like something? And they showed me, they wave. And it's so important for them. It's so important for deaf people to have that sense of solidarity and communication.
Yeah.
And now sign language is on the front doors of the Constitutional Court. All of the themes of the Bill of Rights are in the hand gestures of sign language. Now this is an acknowledgement of the meaning of language for people. And it's also some of the original Khoisan sign languages, very close to extinction, maybe 8 people left in the world who speak them. Special attention is being given to the issue of language. You respect a person's language, you respect that person with that mother tongue, that person being what he or she was born into, and it's so important for us in South Africa, and I'm so pleased that a lot of attention's been given to that issue. We have to deal, and Afrikaans is one of our strong languages. It's become an indigenous language. It's spoken by more black people than white people today. It's not to trample on Afrikaans. It's a beautiful language that's produced wonderful literature, and many of our freedom fighters used Afrikaans in the struggle, but it mustn't be a predominant language. It mustn't have a status beyond the status of other languages that are also claiming attention.
Justice Albie Sachs, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for making time to come to our studios in Cape Town to chat to us on this Human Rights Day. Thanks for your time. Of course, there's Justice Albie Sachs, who is a retired Constitutional Court Justice as well as a human rights activist. Thanks for your time once again.